What is up, Tiger fans? Welcome back to the channel. It is finally time for me to make my Clemson versus Georgia prediction for this upcoming Week 1 college football showdown. So the Tigers are ranked number 3 in the AP poll, and the Bulldogs are ranked number 5. This is a top 5 matchup that we are getting here in Week 1. So much hype surrounding this game, and I'll be breaking down everything that you guys need to know, from the injury report to the keys for each team. So some of you guys, if you guys watch my main channel, which is linked in the description, by the way, you already know my prediction for this game, as I did a prediction video for all of college football's big Week 1 games just earlier today by the time you guys see this. So we're going to go ahead and get into this game, and we're going to begin with the injury report. So starting with the Clemson Tigers, Brandon Spector, backup slot wide receiver, he's dealing with an illness. He will be out for quite a few weeks. So it sounds like it's some issues post COVID-19. So we wish Brandon the best, and hopefully he will be able to get back out there soon. Tyler Davis has reportedly tested positive for COVID-19. Now this is a really complicated situation, and I'm not going to go super in depth with it right here in today's video. But pretty much to summarize it up, Davis didn't have to get tested, but Dabo had him tested anyway, and he tested positive, which of course would mean that he is out. But this is just all a rumor right now. We don't really have a full confirmation that Tyler Davis has COVID or has tested positive for COVID or will miss Saturday's game. But if he does have COVID, of course, just like Spector, wishing them both the best. But we just don't really know with Tyler Davis right now what to expect. Now onto the Georgia side of things. There are quite a few more injuries here. George Pickens, he tore his ACL in the spring. He is going to be out in this game. Pickens is coming into this year as the team's #1 wide receiver. So Georgia, this is going to be a big player out for them. Also, Dominic Blaylock is out with an injury, another knee injury. So you're missing 2 wide receivers. Don't really know how much Blaylock would have played. It's such a deep wide receiver room there at Georgia, but Pickens would have been the team's #1 wide receiver and is a contender to potentially be a first-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. Next up, Darnell Washington, starting tight end, will be out with a foot injury. Now, I did not include Reed Gilbert on the injury report, but he would be around this range as well because he has not really been with the team as of recent. Haven't really heard much from him, but I would assume that he is not going to be playing, and unless we hear something otherwise, assume that Reed Gilbert will not be playing. But Darnell Washington out with a foot injury. Tyke Smith is also out with a foot injury. Tyke Smith, All-American defensive back, transfer from West Virginia. Georgia's missing a lot of key players in this game, and it's really going to hurt the Bulldogs, but they have so much depth all across the board that it's still going to be a really good game, even though you're missing 3 starters here, and 3 very impactful starters in that. So now on to the Clemson offense versus the Georgia defense. What kind of matchup are we looking at here? Starting with the Tigers. The Tigers, their offensive line really struggled in 2020, mainly in the run blocking department. Now, Clemson has a lot of talented running backs, whether it's Lynn J. Dixon, Kobe Pace, Will Shipley, whoever you want to look at. Clemson has talent in the backfield, as does Georgia. But this Clemson offensive line really struggled to open up rushing lanes for Travis Etienne last year. And you have to imagine that's going to be more of the same in 2021. But hopefully it does improve, because as I emphasized so much in my video on my main channel, whichever team is able to get away from a one-dimensional offense is going to have success in this game. Clemson, we know they can throw the football, but how will they be able to run against such a great Georgia rushing defense with such a inexperienced and an offensive line that really struggled last year? However, the Tigers do have a loaded group of receivers to help out young quarterback DJ Uiagalelei. Now, the Tigers, they have, as I mentioned, a loaded group of receivers. Justin Ross is returning, even though they do lose Amari Rodgers and Cornell Powell. Joseph Ngata, Frank Ladson, E.J. Williams. There's so much talent here. And watch for true freshman Bo Collins to have a huge season. I think he's going to have a big game. Could potentially have a big game because of his high school connection with DJ Uiagalelei. And even though DJ is just a true sophomore, even though he did back up Trevor Lawrence last year, he started 2 games last year, and he performed really well in those 2 games, so he's ready for the spotlight. So I don't think that him being a young QB is going to be as much of an issue as it could be for other teams with young quarterbacks. Now to the Georgia defense. They're the top rushing defense in the country in 2020. It's going to be really tough for Clemson to run the ball, but Georgia does lose a couple of guys from the front 7. So it's going to be interesting to see with big Jordan Davis in the middle, Devontae Wyatt, so much talent on this defensive line and the defensive front as a whole for the Georgia Bulldogs. They run more of a 3-4 system. Actually, it's kind of more of 3-3-5, but it's going to be interesting to see how Clemson is going to adjust and how we're going to see Tony Elliott calling plays here, because Clemson's going to have to be able to run the ball. This is going to be the best run defense that Clemson has faced in quite a long time, and it's going to be up to the coaching staff to figure out ways to run the football against this great rushing defense. The Bulldogs, though, they lose a lot in the secondary. Just to name off some names: Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes, Richard LeCount, Mark Webb, Tyreek Stevenson. There's so many guys that they lose from that secondary. They bring in Tyke Smith, and now he's going to be missing this game with an injury. But the Bulldogs do expect to have Jalen Kimber. He is dealing with a shoulder injury, but is listed as probable for this game. But we really won't know much until Saturday. And the Bulldogs also have Clemson transfer Darian Kendrick. Yes, Darian Kendrick transferred from Clemson to Georgia, and he's going to have a big role on this team. So we're going to have to see how he can cover some of his former teammates. He really struggled against Ohio State. He was a big reason why Justin Fields was able to hit some downfield passes. So we're going to have to see how he plays against his former team here in week 1. But the Bulldogs, they have a lot of talent there. And they have, as I mentioned, a lot of talent and a lot of young talent. And I think that's the thing. They're young, they're inexperienced, and inexperienced in the system as well with guys like Darian Kendrick. But I think Georgia's secondary will be just fine. And the pass rush, it's going to have to step up just because of everything that you lose in the secondary and the inexperienced secondary. And this could be similar for the Clemson defense. It could be a similar goal of the pass rush really stepping up and taking control of this game. But as for Clemson's offense, they're going to be able to produce through the air. I think that's a given, but it's going to be on the offensive line holding up both in pass blocking and in rush blocking and opening up lanes. Clemson doesn't have to have a huge game on the ground to win this one, but they just have to have a good enough game to where the passing offense isn't having to do all of the work. Now on to the Clemson defense versus the Georgia offense. We're starting with the Clemson defense. Tons of experience returning. They lose Darian Kendrick, they lose Mike Jones, and they lose a couple of backup defensive tackles. But there's so much returning on this defense. If you look at the defensive line, Brian Brzee, Miles Murphy, Tyler Davis, once again, we'll have to see if he plays, and so much talent across from Murphy at defensive end. This is a really good defensive front. One of the best linebacking duos in the country with Balin Spector and James Skalski. And rising sophomore Trenton Simpson is in for a big year. I'm telling you guys, he's going to have a great season in 2021. In the secondary, you bring back Andrew Booth, a potential top 10 NFL draft prospect in the 2022 draft class. But opposite of him, there could be some concerns at corner. Safety position, though, returns both starters. As for the front 7, it's among the best in the country. As we talked about, the defensive line is absolutely loaded. And the linebackers, even though they do lose starter Mike Jones, the new starter is going to be Trenton Simpson. And we're not really sure what kind of role he's going to play. He might be working on guys like James Cook out of the backfield, and we'll talk about James Cook a little bit later. But this is one of the best front 7s in the country. Brent Venables is really aggressive. He's going to look to blitz. And these guys are going to be able to put pressure on JT Daniels and this Georgia offensive line. And the Tigers, they could have a potential issue across from Andrew Booth at the other corner position. Andrew Booth, as we mentioned, lockdown guy. But across from him, there could be some issues. Also, the safeties gave up a lot of big plays last year. Both Nolan Turner and Landon Zanders is the other starter. So the Tigers, they're going to have to shore up some of those issues in the secondary that really allowed Ohio State to take control of that semifinal matchup. But I think this Clemson defense is great, but there are some holes in the secondary that will need to be fixed. And playing Georgia in week 1 is certainly not ideal for that secondary group. Now on to the Georgia offense. So it's going to be a very balanced attack. You're going to see JT Daniels throwing a bunch, but you're also going to see the running backs getting involved. Good offensive line, and that is actually the next bullet point. So it's a very strong offensive line, and the running back room is great. The run game is going to have success, whether it's Zamir White, James Cook. There's so much talent behind those guys, too. Cook is going to be a big receiving threat, and it's just going to be so many different things coming at this Clemson defense, but Brent Venables will be ready and up to the challenge. So it's just going to be about Georgia getting their playmakers involved, guys like Kearis Jackson, Jermaine Burton. Expect them to have large workloads in this game with some of the other talent that Georgia is missing. And JT Daniels, quarterback, we've got to talk about him. He's a very good quarterback. He's only started four games for the Bulldogs, and he looked pretty good in those 4 games. So very high expectations coming into this 2021 season, just like DJ Uiagalelei. So this is going to be a great quarterback battle, and each quarterback has plenty of weapons to get the ball to. So it's going to be about which quarterback can have the more efficient game, and it's really going to be on the offensive lines. Which offensive line can have more success in the run game and in the pass blocking department as well. So now it is time for my official prediction. With all of that being said, who do I think will win, Clemson or Georgia? And I'd like to say, obviously I am a Clemson fan, but this pick is not going to be based on my love for Clemson. It's going to be based on how I see the game, and I'm fine if you pick Clemson to win. I'm fine if you pick Georgia to win. It's going to be a super close game. I've gone back and forth on this one, but my final pick is a 30-27 victory for the Clemson Tigers. I think Clemson will win this game by a score of 30-27, but it really could be a great game. I think the offensive line will improve. Clemson could have some issues at center, and we could see a guy like Jordan Davis take control on the interior. But I think it's going to be a lot of screens. I think it's going to be a lot of swing passes and those types of things to get your playmakers involved away from the defensive line and that linebacking core that's so strong for the Georgia Bulldogs. So that's the big reason why I'm picking Clemson. I trust in Tony Elliott. I trust in these seasoned coaches for the Tigers to make plays and give the playmakers the ball in critical situations. So this one really could be a close game. Of course, I believe it will be a close game, and it really could go either way. So I want you guys to let me know in the comments who you think will win. Do you think it will be Georgia or Clemson taking home the victory? This game, once again, in Charlotte, North Carolina, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday night. College football game day. Everything, all the hype leading up to this game. It's going to be a great one. But I do think Clemson will just barely edge out Georgia for the victory here. But thank you guys for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and let me know once again in the comments, who do you think will win? Will it be the Clemson Tigers or the Georgia Bulldogs? Main channel, live streaming channel, each linked in the description as they always are. And I'll see you guys next time. Go Tigers.